No doubt at some point you have been lost and stuck for photographic inspiration. You've thought to yourself, if only I could live somewhere interesting, if only I could go to New York or Paris or London or the Grand Canyon, then all of my photographic inspiration problems would be solved at a single swipe. Today, I'm going to show you how to unlock the potential for inspiration within the everyday objects that surround us all. How's it? William Eggleston, one of the greatest photographers of the 20th century, complained to a friend of his that he had nothing to photograph, that Memphis was ugly, that it was full of just dreariness. And then his friend said, look, why don't you, instead of seeking out the things that seem far away from you, photograph that ugly? And of course, Eggleston did, and it launched him on a very long career. This is what I want to share with you today, this idea that inspiration can be right underneath your very nose. It's just because we dismiss it so easily. One of the best lessons that I did as a photo student was the alphabet lesson, which is you go and you find letters of the alphabet hiding in nature. And this teaches you to seek out forms, shapes, and what have you within the everyday objects that surround us. It trains us to see the possibility. And this is what I'm going to share with you today, this idea that there are possibilities all around you. Doesn't matter where you are, for photography that is interesting, and how you can use everyday objects to inspire yourself, to keep your creative juices flowing. So when you do find yourself in an environment that you want to be in, then you can express yourself with far more freedom. The first thing to consider is perspective, the way that you look at the world from the height point of view, because all of us tend to see the world from the same height, roughly, from eye level. And as soon as you get off of that eye level, you change the way that you view objects. And all of a sudden, you see them in a different way because you are looking at them through the lens that you don't often look them through. Think about what happens when you lie on the floor, when you take that cat's eye view of the world. Elliot Erwitt has done this in his photography of dogs. Think about how his camera level, the way that he gets down, is on a dog eye view of the world. And that not only gives us an interesting view, because maybe this is how dogs see the world, but also it plays with our ideas of sense and scale. So you can see that that's a very interesting little thing that you can do. And it's easy, unless you happen to be me and your knees are shot, then lying down on the floor is a great way of all of a sudden discovering interest for things that you just dismiss. The same goes about getting up on high, shooting down on things. Even if it's just standing on a stepladder or going onto the second story of a building and then photographing downwards, look around you. Because as soon as you get off this perspective, this height thing that seems to lock everybody in, then not only do you start to experience the world in a different way, but also you're starting to show the people who see your photographs the world of familiar objects in a way that they are not used to. Very early on, for a lot of photographers, they discovered the work of Edward Weston and Imogen Cunningham. So now these two photographers took everyday objects and they photographed them in a way that was unusual, that they were looking at the shape and the form of the pepper or the shell or the flower, rather than the thing being itself. So photographing a flower like a flower. And you can start doing this. And when you start looking at shape and texture and form and all the possibilities for the things that are around you, then you start seeing that objects that you would have dismissed, that you would have said, well, there's no point in photographing this, all of a sudden hold so much interest. And they can create very interesting photographs because, again, you are showing the viewer things that they see often, things that they don't even give a second thought to as potential for a photograph. And they go, wow, that's amazing. There's that great story that does the rounds from time to time about a lady on Twitter who put up a photograph of the interior of an amazing looking nightclub. It was like awesome, right? And she puts on this picture onto Twitter and she shows her friend. So this is the nightclub we're going to go to. It's going to be great, right? And her friend was, oh, wow, that's so amazing. I can't wait to go. Which nightclub is it? I've never heard of it. And it was only after lots more cheese puns were dropped that the girl went, oh, that's the inside of a cheese grater. So silly. But you can see that's the beauty of photographing things that you are not usually photographing in a way that can trick the viewer, that it can intrigue them, that can show them, a thing that they never even considered. And I love this idea of being able to take all the objects that we see and play with them. Have fun with it. There's loads of possibilities. So long as you just throw off the shackles and the ideas of this must be the subject for a photograph, or, this is not suitable for a photograph. This is nonsense. Anything you want to photograph can be suitable. And you really don't need to go off somewhere amazing to take inspirational photographs or be inspired to take photographs. Look for things that you like. I like architectural scenes. I like very brutalist architecture. I like all those sort of things. So can I find these here in the countryside? Well, not possibly. I think the architecture might be a bit tricky to find, but I can find geometric shapes. I can find geometric form and be interested in it. Right now, I'm looking at the outline of the fire surround, which is behind me, and I'm considering it, what it could hold for me. To do this the same for you. Look around your house, see what you can find, see what you can be inspired by, see what you can explore. Try and take that object that you hold a little bit of attention for you and try and photograph it in as many different ways as you possibly can. See what happens when you throw off this idea of what is a suitable idea for a subject. Light is something that all of us have, no matter where we are. And of course, light is at the heart of photography, because without any light, there's no pictures. So light itself can be a subject. The light that has thrown onto the floor, that a cat's lying in, or is throwing shadows on the walls, or through curtains, or just, being light. See what possibilities there are for you, even if it's just shadows under trees or what have you. Explore them. The more that you do these kind of things, the more that you are aware of all the little things that you could create from patterns, from shapes, from the lights coming through, what have you, then the more that you are giving yourself an exercise in recognizing things that you can photograph. And this is a thing I come back to again and again and again, is that these patterns, these exercises, these shapes, all this stuff, when you practice this, when you put it into practice all the time, and you teach yourself to see the possibility in photographs, then when you are out somewhere that is inspiring you, you won't just kind of go with a knee-jerk reaction and just take the first picture that you think of. You will take all these elements that you are learning, all these skills that you are honing up, and put them into play. And it's going to make your photography so much better. And of course, the beauty of this is that you can do this at any point. It doesn't matter if it's wet or windy or rainy or snowy or whatever outside. You can find inspiration all around you. You just need to open your eyes and look, because I know you can do it. I know that you can do it. I'm a big fan of a photographer called Mac Stewart, who's great at combining elements to form sort of humorous connections. And this is a really good example of the way that you can have an environment that's not necessarily stimulating, not necessarily interesting, and you can make something of it if you are just open to the possibilities. And I know I keep saying open to possibilities, but this is very much at the heart of everything. You need to be removing the blinkers that can confine us in our photography. So as soon as you sort of go, well, I like this element, can I combine this with another one to form a third effect or an overtone, much like Alex Webb does in his photographs as well? Or can I frame objects through various methods? So, and then by doing so, finding a little bit more of something to play with in a scene. And I think this kind of boils down to where a lot of people, you may go, I'm not inspired, I have nothing to photograph, is because you're not looking at the elements around you as toys almost that you can play with, that you can just experiment with and have fun, taking photographs and combining them, seeing what happens. So think about the options that are available to you, odd framing, odd still lifes, putting, children's toys and photographing children's toys. All of these options are there for you just to play and to enjoy, to tease out the possibilities. If you are interested in expanding your visual language, of upping your skills in communicating through your photographs, so your photographs have a more of something to say, really, then I put together a course which you can find on Teachable. I've linked to it in the description box below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I will see you again soon.